In the spring semester of 2022, I was getting settled into my new job at the Lion's Den game room at UNA. We were planning an end of the semester party, and the topic of food to serve people came up when my coworker, Jenny, mentioned we should keep expectations low because of how cheap Chartwell's would be with the food. This wasn't the first time I had heard Jenny complain about the university's food provider, as she would make similar comments on shady practices of Chartwell's whenever someone in the game room would casually mention not being able to afford lunch from the restaurants in the GUC building. My name is William Beasley. I'm a communications student at UNA, majoring in journalism, and I am here to tell you about the things that I have discovered and uncovered these past couple of months when taking a closer look at the relationship between University of North Alabama and its food service provider, Chartwell's Higher Education. The first thing I wanted to investigate was if Chartwell's was indeed dealing the university a rotten hand, was to see if people were paying more for the foods that they were ordering by using the on-campus options rather than using a location a little out of the way. Unfortunately, the only restaurants I could perform the study on were Chick-fil-A, Starbucks, and Panda Express, as Cafe DeLucci is a French-based coffee shop, and the closest Moe's Southwest Grill is over an hour drive away from university campus, and all the other Chartwell's locations on campus are unique to the university, such as the Main Market, Burger 256, and the Create Store. Even with the small sample size, the results of the small study that I did were very telling, as I ordered the exact same items from both the on-campus and off-campus options, and for all three of the available restaurants, in each and every case, the more expensive option was the on-campus option. When eating at Panda Express, I got a single egg roll and a small order of orange chicken, and it was 50 cents more on campus. For Starbucks, I got a cheese Danish and a venti latte with caramel and vanilla, and it was 80 cents more expensive on campus. And then at Chick-fil-A, I ordered a chicken sandwich meal and an order of nuggets, and it was 20 cents more expensive on campus. Now, 50 cents, 80 cents, or even a whole dollar may seem like big deal, so what? But those cents and dollars add up, especially for students who regularly eat on campus because it's their only option. The dorm halls are notoriously filled to capacity with long wait lists, and when I went to the Main Market to ask students who lived on campus how often they ate on campus, the majority said that they do so every day. You say that you eat on campus often, like here and the places you see in the Commons?
Yeah, for sure. I eat pretty regular.
According to the students I interviewed, as well as my interview with Chartwell's retail director here at the University of North Alabama, Evan Clayton, the most popular restaurants on campus by far is Chick-fil-A.
Probably Chick-fil-A here.
Probably Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A? Okay.
Oh, without a doubt, Chick-fil-A.
Without doubt, Chick-fil-A.
Oh, yeah.
To do my best to paint a picture of how quickly those dollars and cents add up, I sat outside of the Chick-fil-A on campus on a Tuesday for 1 hour and used a clicker counter to track every order placed and every mobile order picked up within that hour. The final number on the clicker counter at the end of the hour was 166 orders. And since Chick-fil-A had the difference of only 20 cents in my study, and while it may seem like such a minuscule amount, it only takes 5 orders for that extra 20 cents that people spend on Chick-fil-A to add up to a whole dollar, which means the 166 that I counted in my hour of observation adds up to an extra $33.05 that Chick-fil-A charged in just that hour. The hour I chose was from 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., which, while a busier hour to do the count, was still not the busiest, as the lunch rush from 11:30 to around 1:30 has far more people per hour than even the time right before that I conducted my count during. So I feel that with the increased number of orders during the lunch rush mixed with the slower hours of the day, that my 166 is a fair ballpark to use as an hourly average that you can then place on the 14 and a half hours that Chick-fil-A is open each day, aside from Sunday, as it opens as early as 6:30 for breakfast and doesn't close until 9 p.m. Then you add those extra dollars to every hour of the day, every day of the week, every week of the month, every month of the year. The fact that Chick-fil-A has been on the UNA campus for at least 8 years, that's an amount of extra money Chartwell's is charging students that I'm too afraid to calculate. And let me just clarify that I had to say at least 8 years because while I could not find when Chick-fil-A was added to the university when researching online, I did find an article from the Florala from 2015 written by Anna Brown calling Chick-fil-A a recent addition when discussing the fact that the on-campus location had started to serve breakfast. When taking all those numbers together, it becomes clear that Chartwell's makes more than a few extra dollars each day from the pricing differences that they implement. When looking at this issue, it's important to understand the exact way that Chartwell's is pricing students more for food that is sold in the on-campus restaurants. My immediate thought when seeing the difference totals on my receipts was that the restaurants on campus had simply raised the price of every item by around 20 cents or so, or that there was simply a higher tax rate. Though the actual way that each receipt from my on-campus orders ended up showing a higher total is that some items at the restaurants are priced identical to their off-campus counterparts, while others have a different and higher price. For example, in the case of my order from Panda Express, the small order of orange chicken was priced the exact same at $4.90. But for the egg roll, I was only charged $1.50 at the off-campus location, but I was charged $2 on the on-campus location. Then with my order from Starbucks, both my venti latte and cheese Danish had the same price at both locations, $4.95 for the latte and $3.65 for the Danish, but the pricing difference shows in the syrups I added to my latte, as the on-campus location added 80 cents for both the vanilla and caramel syrup that I added, which might sound like a no-brainer, but that's not how it's done at Starbucks, and that's when I remembered something. Okay, so little sidebar here. I took 2 gap years in my education at UNA, and in that time, I worked at a Starbucks in Birmingham. One day, my friend sent me a picture they found online of a Starbucks drink sticker with nearly every syrup added along with other modifications to the drink. My friend sent it to me with the message along the lines of, "I'm too broke to even think about ordering this thing." I mentioned that it wouldn't really be that expensive, and his response was that the syrups alone would break the bank. I explained to my friend how the way adding syrups to drinks work in relation to price is that only the first syrup added is marked with a price, and the price is not a charge for the flavor of syrup it's listed next to, but it serves as an umbrella added syrups price. This basically means that if you went to Starbucks and ordered 2 Americanos and one had classic syrup and the other had classic raspberry and vanilla, they would cost the same amount. When I explained this to my friend, they responded by saying, "Well, they charge for every syrup at the Starbucks I go to." And at the time of that conversation, my friend was a student at UNA. And now getting into the main meat of things, my order from Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is an odd case in this little study of mine, as it was the lowest difference in terms of the total price, but both of the items I purchased were priced higher on campus than they were off campus. In terms of the chicken sandwich meal, the on campus was $8.09, while the meal off campus was $7.99. Likewise, the chicken nuggets off campus were $6.29, but they were $6.39 when purchased on campus. I find it interesting that Chick-fil-A breaks the trend set by Starbucks and Panda Express by having no items on the receipt matching, and also that the price difference on the receipt for both items was 10 cents. I was curious if this meant that every item on the university Chick-fil-A menu was 10 cents more expensive, or if I simply happened to pick 2 items that were. To find out, I performed the study once again on Chick-fil-A and selected 3 different items: a spicy chicken sandwich, large french fry, and a grilled cool wrap. When it came to the difference in prices of these 3 items, they actually ended up being the exact same at both locations, with the spicy chicken sandwich being $5.15 at both locations, the large fry being $2.75 at both locations, and the grilled cool wrap being $7.69 at both locations. Which means that the trend set by Starbucks and Panda Express does indeed hold true with Chick-fil-A. where sometimes an item is priced the same and sometimes it is more expensive. With all these price differences, I went back to my discussion with Evan Clayton, where he did admit there were times that prices differed from the off-campus locations, though he claimed that in the majority of cases, the times when prices differed are in benefit to students as the differences make the items less expensive.
Well, we always try to stay in league with whatever's going on with with the actual regular stores, but actually we just had a price increase because on various places because we actually were behind other people. So,
Okay.
But other stores are actually the streets, what we call a street store. That a lot of times they'll end up being $1 or so more. We've done the same thing, but we
Okay.
actually held back.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, there's sometimes, depending on where you're at, I mean, a Big Mac may cost different in New York comparatively to what it costs in Alabama.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing. We being licensees of these different brands and stuff like that, we try to stay along with them about what's going on in the street and stuff like that. So there may be some bits here and there that don't match up exactly, but actually it's been to everybody's benefit for quite some time.
Gotcha. Now, I cannot confirm that there are not any instances where a price difference benefits the students, but from the sample of my own investigation, I have 4 counts of prices being different, and among those 4, not only is the majority it being more expensive on campus, but that outcome is also the unanimous outcome. I wanted to get some information about why Clayton would claim that there are more cheaper differences when my data shows the opposite, and wish to get an interview with either Susan Breer or Ed Homsky, as they both hold the title of Director of Operations for Chartwells at UNA, with Breer holding the Senior Director. However, when I contacted them, I only received a reply from Susan Breer, and when I did, it was to inform me that her position prohibited her from interviews, though she could answer the questions I had over email. An email interview was not an ideal, but I was at least glad I would be getting something rather than nothing. I sent out my first email, and after a few days, I got my response, though instead of answers to my questions, I got requests for clarifications, and on some of my questions, I was given a refusal to comment based on the nature of the question. In clarification, the questions that she asked for clarification on involved a question about food waste and a question about the reasons as to why certain items become changed in their price, and then the questions where she refused to give an answer to were my question on why catering on campus is exclusive to Chartwells, and as to why I was told by one of Chartwell's employees that price differences benefit students when my data shows otherwise. Throughout my investigation, I have tried many different times and many different ways to find the contracts between University of North Alabama and Chartwell's higher education, though at every turn I have been met with dead ends, ignored emails, and the works. While I was never able to acquire a copy of the contract between Chartwells and North Alabama, I was able to acquire a copy of the contract between Chartwells and Central Michigan University. Now, it's not ideal, as UNA and CMU are 2 schools with likely numerous differences in the ways that Chartwells does business with them, though within the contract I did find a section about confidentiality suggesting that a similar section exists within the contract Chartwells has with North Alabama, likely including restrictions that prevent the UNA contract from being available in any capacity to the public. When looking further into the contract with CMU, I found that subsection C of Exhibit A was about pricing. Within the first paragraph of that subsection, it mentions changing the prices of items from national brands. To quote it directly, the contract states, "In the case of national brand retail products, Chartwells shall price such items in accordance with the specifications of such national brands. Should such specifications mandate an increase in price, Chartwells shall provide CMU with prompt written notice prior to such increases taking effect." One thing I think is interesting is that they don't say changed prices, they say increased prices. To put it in other words, the one and only way the price of an item would change is making it more expensive, and the option to lower prices and make them more affordable for the college students stacking up student loans and eating ramen all the time because it's All they can afford is not even on the table. And we can see that despite what Chartwell's employees are claiming, the same applies to UNA. I would very much like to go even further into the pricing subsection, as it is the key part of the contract that relates to this story. Unfortunately, though, the first paragraph is then followed by over 3 full pages of completely redacted information. Is it information as to what situations would constitute a change in prices? Examples of when and why they've raised prices with past universities? Information regarding the extra money made from the raised prices and where it goes, if it goes to the university or to student workers or to Chartwells themselves. These are all things I would certainly love to know, but it seems Chartwells has an even larger desire to keep me and anyone else looking into this topic completely in the dark and shut out from the information. And if you would like to see photos of my receipts, a photo of my clicker counter on the day that I sat outside of Chick-fil-A, a graph about the food waste that Chartwells goes through, I will be posting all of those, as well as a link to the Chartwells contract with CMU, a screenshot of my email with Susan Breer, all of it to a Reddit, to a subreddit that I created called r/UNA investigation, or r/UNA Dine investigation. Or, well, that was supposed to be the title of the subreddit. When making the subreddit, I accidentally made a typo, and you are not able to change the titles of subreddits after you have created them. And so it is still r/UNA Dine investigation, only the E in investigation is an R. Speaking of that graph of food waste, that leads me to my next point, which is that Chartwells has a complete monopoly when it comes to food on campus, as whenever any form of event wishes to have food present, it must be ordered and approved by Chartwells, or else there is penalty of a fine paid by the ones who threw the event that dared to simply order some Domino's pizza rather than go through the different hoops of order and approval of Chartwells. Yet catering from Chartwells for an event is hardly ever truly worth it. As detailed in an interview with a student employee who has asked to remain nameless even with this being a class project and not published, who sets up such orders, informed me that a large amount of the food in these orders gets thrown out.
We usually give some away to the worker, they usually give some away to us workers, so we can take it home or we eat it, because sometimes after a big event and they have a lot of leftover food, we usually eat it during our break. And then the rest of it will either be packed away and taken back home or stored somewhere. Sometimes they throw it out. It just depends on what it is.
Okay.
Really.
She does mention that the student workers are free to take any uneaten food to prevent waste, but follows the claim by saying most of the food just goes to waste anyway. I had planned to go further into this part of my investigation with an interview with Denise Seagraves, the director of catering for Chartwells at UNA, but the few attempts I was able to make at setting up an interview were met with silence, and so I was unable to secure the interview. Unfortunately, that does mean that this story comes to an end here, rather anticlimactically, though I still want to get to the bottom of things when it comes to Chartwells, so I will continue to try and seek the answers this investigation asked, and if I make any significant progress, I will update the subreddit r/UNA Dine investigation. Thank you for listening.